Okay, we are looking at Kit 1 Theme E, and I mentioned this last week if you were working on the digraphs and the graphemes, that this week we're looking at IGH, and I was just saying I had a big meeting with Melvin on Skype yesterday, so I've sort of shifted my own thinking. So I'm going to walk you through the theme as well as some of the updates. He is in the process of doing a final sort of edit over the Kit 1 computer disk version, which gives you a lot more information than the paper copies of the themes. So he was able to walk me through a little bit of that helped me get my head around this. So first of all, the big ideas in this are that the three-letter grapheme IGH is an important and common element of the spelling system. Its main job is representing the long I sound. And so, what we do already know from our preceding themes, that IGH can also represent long E or long A, and I'll tell you a way to differentiate those that is easy to remember. It's a simple spelling pattern, but within this theme we're going to primarily focus on long I. Okay? This is a spelling pattern about phonology, ways that spelling represents speech sounds that matter. So this, we have our morphology, etymology, and phonology sort of themes. This is a very phonemic, that's probably not the right way to say it, this is a phonological theme, and it's one of the things I think I got hung up on when I was trying to think about this, and I'll explain it to you in a minute. Actually, I'm going to explain it right now. So, phonological matrices are what are represented in this kit starting off. And if you'll remember back early on, there's an actual theme with phonological matrices, and we decided it wasn't as helpful. But it's actually very helpful in this theme, and so I'm going to show you what that is about. It is about, and this is what Mel and I talked about, the phonological matrix is about constructing a base element. So you would use a phonological matrix for kids that can't spell the base word. But a phonological matrix is not where we're adding suffixes or prefixes. And I was looking at this one. This is on the server. It's not in your kit now. This is off a new kit. I was looking at this one, and the way that T is represented, I kept thinking of this as a suffix T. But then I'd look at a word like sight, and the base isn't psi. So I kept getting myself all messed up with it. I was trying to act like this was a suffix that we were adding on. But it is actually a phonological matrix that just builds the base word, and from there we would add the prefixes and suffixes. Okay? And that's also important for later on to sort of get rid of some of the thinking that we may have encountered before. So the difference between a phonological matrix that just builds a base and a morphological matrix is the combination of elements. So a base is an element that can't be broken down any further. So when we build our other base, when we build our other matrices with prefixes and suffixes, all of those are elements that can be attached or detached, but the element itself can't be broken down any further. So for example, ED, you wouldn't break that into anything more than what it is. So I had to get all that sorted in my mind because I kept looking at this. So after you build the base, then you can move into the other kind of matrices. He does both of those in this. So when I was looking at one, I was just confused on the other, but you'll see them both. In this theme, we know that IGH represents long I when it's preceded by a consonant. So in this phonological matrix, all of these are consonants, which indicate to us that it's going to make the long I sound. The other way it works is if it's going to make a long E or long A sound, it's preceded by a vowel. So that's the difference right there. Some of your kids may try to give you IGH words that don't say I, but say E or A, and then you can refer them to what precedes the trigraph. Okay? All right. The other thing that this is very helpful with is, and I know I've taught phonics where we introduce IGHT as being this thing that always goes together. Very, very often, the T is there if you have IGH, but not always, like in the word psi. So the T is sometimes, almost always is the way Melvin says it, but not always. And if we teach IGHT, then it doesn't account for those words that don't have a T on the end. Okay? So it is IGH plus the T almost always. Okay?
Plus the trigraph is making one sound, whereas if you add the T, then it's two sounds.
Yes.
Two sounds.
And that was the way that he made me think it through, was taking the word sight, and he would say, this is great, he would say, you know the beginning sound, how many ways can you represent that? Well, it could be an S or a C, but I'm going to go with an S. You know the end sound, T, how many ways can you represent that? Probably a T. So then the determination in the middle is what should go there. And that's what the rest of the theme kind of gets into. Why is it IGH and not just an I with a silent, single silent E on the end? And so we'll get into all of that. Making sure I haven't forgotten something. Okay. And I put this up here, but basically we've worked on the vowels. IGH, when you're spelling out, putting it all together, making sure that they can write those in handwriting, the IGH together, all of that is still really good practice. So one of the ways that to introduce this theme is to be saying that we're going to begin working with a team of 3 letters, which often represent IGH, which often represent the long I sound, and that is IGH. You can get into the fact that it's a trigraph versus digraph, which has 2 and all of that. But he says, indicate that it's a very positive thing. This happens a lot, and we know immediately what it does. We know what it's going to do. So this is a phonological matrix that he includes here just to build the base. So asking, why isn't it HI? Well, we already have that word. We already know we have that word. And we often use, in English, we often have a homophone when the meaning changes. So what are our other options for making the I, long I sound in the medial or final position? IGH is there. So that's the second thing we could try. Most of the time, kids are going to try the long I sound, either by itself, and then they end up with a short word, right? Like sit, if they're trying to spell sight, S-I-T-E, and they end up S-I-T, it's sit. So we want to get them to move to the first thing we're going to attempt is the I and possibly a single E, and the second thing we might attempt is IGH, if it begins with a consonant, okay? So practice building base elements, especially in the lower grades, just getting this work done, and maybe finding the homophones for the other words so that we can indicate those, making charts. And then figuring out what would make sense, because it could be spelled this way, but the only reason I want this word is because of the way I'm using it and the meaning that's behind it. So when Melvin and I were working on the word sight, and there is an S-I-T-E, right, that is a website or something, but it's not the way I'm using it in the sentence, so that helps me differentiate with what word I want, always coming back to meaning. So this was the one I kind of made up for that. And then there's, right, sit, sight, and sight. This is why I do this twice, because I forget what I write in the chart. Yeah, okay, so then he has this box here. This is a handout that's in the theme where you can begin adding the suffixes on and practicing with spelling out, which is another thing that we want to try to give kids an opportunity to do. Your word sum, though, would not begin in a phonological matrix, which I was trying to do. I was trying to have a plus T. It wouldn't be a plus T. I would get the base element, then any pluses come with prefixes and suffixes alone. So I'd form the base, H, IGH, plus, and then I'd add those other things on, okay? This one includes the T and talks about how it is often there. So he recommends that you create a collection of IGH plus T words. And again, this isn't like T like a suffix addition, but it's that very often the T does go along with. Again, this didn't confuse me as much as this bar did. It made me think it was a suffix, and there is a T suffix, but this isn't it. So, building a collection of base IGH plus T words that are preceded by a consonant, so we get that long I sound. Notice any homophones, maybe line them up, and then start to develop matrices for IGH plus T as base element words. So we'd have the base, and then you'd add on the suffixes at the end. Does that make sense? Okay. No actual plus here. I'm just calling it IGH with a T, with the T that's sometimes there. I don't know how better to write that. Elements can't be divided, and that's the thing that I think was also, I know that, but I wasn't thinking about that here. I was still trying to get, I thought maybe it was some sort of free base, bound base idea, but it really isn't. It's that you can't divide, that's as far as the word can go down. The other thing that he said is IGH comes from, etymologically comes from Old English, and they are often words that are very basic, ordinary, or everyday. So like S-I-T-E isn't a basic, everyday, or ordinary word, but sight, being able to see, kind of is a basic, everyday, ordinary word. He says that's a good other way to sort of say, could this possibly be the spelling? This is at the back of the theme, and it's got some complexity to it when you look at it the first time. But what he's done here, and again, this isn't something you'd hand out to kids necessarily, but something you work from. This light matrix, L-I-G-H-T matrix, would be a really good one to use with like first graders, because that's a word they encounter. It's huge because it is part of so many different kinds of words. So this would be an excellent one to start forming these words from a very common base element. Here what he's done is he's shown a separate matrix with the homophone. And it at first glance seems very complex, but really that's all he's done. And for the older kids, that would be a great way to do it, is to not just build a matrix, but build the homophone matrix as well to get that practice. Delight is in here in the light one, but it's not really connected in meaning, is what he said in the theme. So I'm kind of confused as to why it's there, because I thought that was the goal, but it is on there. If you are confused and don't know and don't want to teach that, I would just take it off. He may have been trying to show an additional prefix just for the practice purposes. Okay, and L-I-T-E is an American-only word. Which means not heavy or substantial, but they don't really use it in British English. It's not a word that's common in their vocabulary. So you could make a homophone matrix over here with L-I-T-E. Okay. And at the end, he always says things that come up. The other issue that some phonics texts do is they look at GH as being a grapheme, that somehow you get this IGH from. It is, but really we want to look at IGH as a trigraph and not try to put it in here as a digraph. On its own, GH is the digraph for words like ghost. Consonant plus IGH, which is what we've been working on, gives you the long I sound. Vowel plus IGH gives you the long A or E sound, depending on which one precedes it. And U, with the GH, can give the F sound, which we're going to talk more about way later in Kit 6 Theme I, unless your kids are ready for that or have questions about that, and you could certainly go into that kit. Okay, that's it. Are there any questions? For me, the biggest thing was the phonological matrix, the idea that I can use that to build base elements, especially if we're trying to get kids to see that there's IGH as a trigraph and not IGHT as a quadraph or whatever you might call it, but that's not what it is. It is IGH on its own.